be clear. The Obama accusation that Trump is doing is.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. I I missed some of it by a snippet. I don't have all my networks up, but you know what? We are going to get busy and we're going to get done with the show anyway. Anyhow, welcome aboard, El Señor ABQ, numero uno in the list from Brooklyn, New York, E2247 in the house from all over. We also have in the house, E2247 has a lot to say. Harry Denson from Missouri City, Missouri, or rather Missouri City, Texas. We also have coming in. Remember, we missed the first few dozen on Substack, but we've got Adele Gavalski. Welcome aboard. Pat Vass, Tony, welcome aboard. Great to have you here. Let me start reading what we got from more peeps. Michael or E2247 says, "This is no time for waffling. We are the only ones who can do this and got to do it now. While 47, the insane, is still somewhat quiescent. He will get us all in a much worse fix every day. Let's see what is that about." Spyro, beforehand, you said Spyro Agnew today would be 100% correct if he today spoke of pusillanimous, pussyfooting Democrats. Them grow a pair. Yeah, all right. Gohamis, New York City rabbis arrested while protesting hunger in Gaza. Supporters gathered outside the Israeli consulate to demand that food aid be allowed into Gaza. Phyllis Wisdom, executive director of New York Jewish Agenda, said the protests we've typically seen at the Israeli consulate in places like that are from further left community. This represents an escalation from rabbis in the political lane. Those arrested included Rabbi Rachel Triminer of Congregation Beth Elohim in Brooklyn, Rabbi Jason Klein of Congregation Belt Sinchat Torah in Manhattan, and Rabbi Diane Collar Essence with Romenu on the Upper West Side, and Rabbi Dina Cohens of the Banai Jashran on the Upper West Side. My own New York, there is something seriously wrong here. And that is so correct. The starvation, you name it, it's what's occurring, is something we got to mitigate. E2247 also says, today's news in 47 will personally interview and do his own vetting of every candidate to be promoted to four-star military rank. To vet means to subject expert appraisal. That's a shame because what he's going to do is to see, make sure that all the people he puts in there as a four-star general, is gonna be, well, he expects or hopes they're sycophants. Of course, they could always lie to him. You know that, right? 47, the insane fraudster is no military nor four-star officer corp expert. He's not competent to be vetting any candidate to be promoted in any military rank. U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, the President shall be Commander in Chief of the Army and Navy. Commander in Chief is a title, not an elected office. POTUS is constitutionally appointed to be C in C. That appointment does not confer expertise to do vetting of any candidate to be promoted to any military rank. Movement for Freedom launched last night as a national campaign to amplify our voices and build a people powered resistance, noted in the communities. Join today. Thank you for that. Movement for Freedom launched 7/29/95 by Cory Bush, Jamal Bowman, youth organizer Vincent Vertuccio, and Reverend Dr. Stephanie Rose Spalding, spokesperson, Movement for Freedom. Movement for Freedom is an operation of a politivist action pact committed to driving social change by electing leaders who stand for peace, justice, and human rights. Politivist Action Group's mission is to reject corporate influence and eliminate big money in politics, proudly supporting grassroots candidates who champion dignity. All right, folks, I love that. All right, let's see. Harry Denson said, "Afternoon, Egberto, in the Hacienda of Politics, doing right. Thank you for being here, my friend." Yeah, did you understand that in I think it was Vermont or Maine, Maine, I think it was, a police officer of Jamaican descent got arrested. That's what our ICE is doing now, folks. The ICE is doing its full job. Oh yeah. All right, we've also have Lee Grant from Montgomery County in the house. Welcome aboard, Lee Grant. Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia is in the house. Thank you for being here, Yvette. Eric Hayes is in the house from Kingwood at Escocita. Welcome aboard. Do You Lie has just made it in. Philip Caper, independent voter one. Kat and Tony, thank you for being here. All right, let me start with one particular subject here. Capitulation index tracks how US media companies are responding to Trump bullying. This capitulation is a pervasive trend that applies to nearly all commercial media, including cable and telecommunications firms and online platforms, said Free Press. We are going to have to hold every corporation that capitulated, every corporation that capitulated to Donald Trump, when this is all over and when we win, because I want all of you listening here, we are going to win this battle. There is no doubt in my mind that we are going to win this battle. And we are going to make every corporation that succumbed to Donald Trump, every corporation that did it, we're going to let them pay. We're going to let them pay. Anyhow, continuing. Media advocacy organization Free Press on Tuesday unveiled an index that documents and rates major media organizations' reaction to the coercive demands being made by US President Donald Trump. As Free Press explained in a press release, its media capitulation index tracks actions taken by 35 major media conglomerates who are facing pressure from Trump and his allies to curb critical reporting and commentary on his administration. In this investigation, Free Press found that to varying degrees, the owners of America's largest media firms are caving to pressure from an authoritarian minded president and his captured federal agencies, the organization wrote. The capitulation is not unique to owners of news outlets like Paramount, which owns CBS, Disney, which owns ABC, and Warner Brothers, who owns CNN. Rather, it's a pervasive trend that applies to nearly all commercial media, including cable and telecommunications firms and online platforms. Free Press argued that media companies have been bending to Trump's will, though through four major methods: paying out lavish settlements in lawsuits brought by the president, rolling back their programs for enhanced diversity, equity, and inclusion, and pressuring journalists and commentators to soften or even censor their criticisms of the president. Okay? Uh, and the attempting to curry favor with the president during inaugural ceremonies, private dinners at Mar-a-Lago, and meeting in the White House. The index uses a scale to rate media organizations that range from independent on one end to propaganda on the other. Of all the media companies surveyed by Free Press, only two are rated as independent. That is Bloomberg Media Group and Netflix. The New York Times Company, for now, is the least compromised of any print media conglomerate outside of Bloomberg and is merely listed as vulnerable, while Nant Capital, the owner of the Los Angeles Times, is the most compromised and is rated as obeying the Trump administration. We should remember what happened when they tried to endorse Kamala Harris, how the CEO pulled it, the chairman pulled it rather quickly. Former New York Times public editor Margaret Sullivan, a longtime critic of the American media's response to Trump, praised Free Press on her Substack page for highlighting the major problems facing the American media in the second Trump term. Well, folks, you have politics done right, independent media. Nobody's getting to us, nobody's paying us to lie to you. So we are going to be out here telling the truth. All right, huge diverse corporations own news companies and independent journalism all too often take a backseat to corporate profits, mergers, and other forms of consolidation, she said. Meanwhile, public media has been defunded. Local journalism lacks local ownership, and partisan propaganda has found an influential home on radio and cable news. She also interviewed Tim Carr, who worked as Free Press Senior Director of Strategy and Communications, about why her former employer did not earn an independent rating on the index. Wow. There is a tendency to both sides reporting about the Trump administration, Carr said of the New York Times coverage, which she added give it both weight. Let's see. Welcome aboard. Boxall says they capitulated to Obama, the FBI, and the Democrat millionaires. You must be dreaming. You must forgot what they did to Obama. You must don't have a good memory, my dear Ernie Boxall. I'd suggest you remember how one of the biggest problems in Obama's administration was the lies that they allowed to go through. We shouldn't forget that just the birther movement alone, the press ran with. It wasn't something justifiable. Obama's mother was an American white woman. The press should have immediately said, because of who Obama's mother is, it did not matter who Obama, where Obama was born. He's a natural born citizen because of who his mother was. But they made believe they didn't know that. The mainstream media did. So come on now. GR, welcome aboard. Vicky Matson, welcome aboard Politics Done Right. And if you're talking 2020, it's even worse. So no, the media has never capitulated to Democrats. They've always done so to right wingers because I don't know. I guess they're afraid of them. I guess they are afraid of them. Let me see if I can pick up on the index. Online platform streaming. Let me put it on the screen because this is from our subs. Free press is on Substack. So let me go ahead and put that on the screen. As you can see, uh, SpaceX very compromised. TikTok to be determined. Netflix is doing a good job. Meta compromised. Apple compromised. Amazon compromised. Alphabet compromised. They're all compromised. Let's see the other broadcast media. Odyssey not yet rated. Hearst, they're all, look at that. All of them are compromised to some extent. Let's see newspaper and publishing. Let's see. I don't see them having. Well, I guess they don't consider Substack a newspaper because I don't see them have it rating in publishing, which may be a good thing. But anyway, let's continue here. You're lying again. I don't lie, my dear brother Boxel, but I'll let you slide with that one. Okay, let's see. Let's continue here. Let's continue here. I'm looking at the chat to see what I need to cover before I move on. All right, Vermont Councilman. I'm not going to read that one. Let's continue. All right, Bruce Pollard says, I am in the little house out back. Your Hebrew pronunciation is pretty good. Really? I guess that means it is similar to the way we enunciate in Spanish. Ernie Boxall, you may not consider yourself my brother, or rather, I am not your brother, but I consider you a brother. You see, let me tell you something, Ernie. And I want everybody to see Ernie is a MAGA guy that gives me hell on Substack. Okay? I want to talk directly to Mr. Ernie Boxall. It is okay for you to hate me. It is okay for you to despise me. It is okay for you to, but you know what I do notice is that you're here every day, morning and night. I love you, brother. I consider you my brother. If I see you hurt, I will try to help you. You see, because the only reason you hate me is because of what the right wing has taught you, Mr. Boxall. The right wing has lied to you about everything that I represent, everything that those of us that are progressive represent, anything that those of us who really care about America represent. They had to lie to you. They had to convince people like you that were willing to accept the lie. They had to convince you to hate so that they could continue damaging America. It's not that they want to damage America, really. It is that they just want to profit for themselves only, right? That's what it's all about. And they've convinced you to hate me. They've convinced you to hate progressives. But I don't hate you, brother. I just look at you for what you really are. Someone whose mind has been compromised. Okay? Somebody whose mind has been compromised, my brother. And I understand it. If I hate you, I allow the people who are puppeteering your mind to win. And I won't allow that. I won't allow the puppet masters that have your mind to win. So I will continue talking to you. I will continue engaging you. I'll continue to engage everybody. But I won't leave you alone. And I want you to also know there will be a place here for you to land. Okay? But you are completely and entirely ill-informed. Completely. Mathematically, morally, and in every fashion possible. But it's okay. Welcome. Independent Voter 1 says, Ernie hate is never a solution. The longer you hold on to it, the longer your problem will persist. Ernie comes back and says, the only thing on my mind is I've heard your Marxist speech before. You see, and that's the thing. They've taught you those words, but they haven't taught you what that means. What do I support that will harm you? As opposed to what do I support that would make life better for you? And that's the thing. You have been given words to lie to yourself, brother. That's all. But it's okay. It is okay. I won't fall for it ever. So continue your hate, brother. Continue your hate. All right, folks, let's go to the first video. I love this first video because Kirsten Wilker actually went on Meet the Press and fixed things. Let me go ahead and put that out for you, and then we'll take it on the other side. Here we go. Now, let's be clear. The Obama accusation that Trump is doing as far as, Obama committed treason because of the Russian collusion, etc., is hogwash. And it's not really meritorious of us covering it. But what I did want to cover is how Meet the Press handled it. And believe it or not, I want to give them partial credit, partial kudos for doing it. Because what happens too often with the mainstream media is that while they challenge Democrats and progressives often and consistently, they normally give Republicans a pass. They normally allow Republicans to come on the networks, to come on our airwaves that we own, to mislead us, to lie to us, and they accept the bullying willfully. Well, today, Kirsten Welker didn't allow that from Lindsey Graham. And I want to give her kudos for that. So I want you to see how not only was she ready for him, she had her material. Many a times they're not ready for the interview that they're doing, and they allowed the Republicans to run rings around them. I don't know if it's that they're not ready, because they have producers who do all this work. Unlike independent media that doesn't have a lot of help, they do have a lot of help to help them out. I want you to listen to this exchange, because not only did she challenge him in real time, she had the receipts with all the things that he had said previously. So check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Senator Graham, let me ask you about this twist that happened this week. President Trump seemed to want to try to shut down questions about the Epstein files by accusing former President Obama of treason. This came as his director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, declassified documents which allege top Obama officials manufactured information related to Russian interference in the 2016 election. Now, Senator, as you are well aware, this actually contradicts a bipartisan Senate intelligence report led by Marco Rubio, which found that Russia did, in fact, interfere in the election. Do you actually believe that former President Obama committed treason?
Well, I think somebody needs to look at what we found. The Intel Committee looked at the matter, and they said in 2017, the intelligence analysis of 2017 showing that Russia was trying to interfere in our election was real. They didn't achieve their goal. But what she found, Ms. Gabbard, is that in 2016, the intelligence community told President Obama there's no evidence that Russia was involved in trying to change the outcome of the election. And he supposedly told a group of people, keep looking, and the analysis changed. So what we're looking at is what role did Obama play in 2016 to change the narrative that resulted in 2017? I'm not alleging he committed treason, but I am saying it bothers me. It's disturbing that this is new information. And now you got the number 2 guy at the FBI, Mr. Bongino, saying he's seen things that has changed his life. And I assume now he's referring to Russia. So the best way to handle this is if there is evidence of a crime being committed or suspected evidence of a crime being committed, create a special counsel to look at it. I think that's the best way to go.
Okay, let me follow up with you on your calls for a special counsel investigation. As you know, Senator, there was already a Trump-appointed special counsel at the time investigating the origins of the Russia probe. It did not find any evidence of political interference. And, Senator, at the time, you agreed with the findings of the intelligence community. I want to play back what you said at the time. Take a look.
The Russians did it. It was the Russians who tried to interfere in our election. Every member of the committee agrees it was the Russians. They didn't change the outcome, but they did release information embarrassing to the Democratic Party. It did affect Hillary Clinton. There's only one person in Washington that I know of that has any doubt about what Russia did in our election, and it's President Trump.
Senator, are you now saying that you don't believe that Russia tried to interfere in the 2016 election?
But what I'm saying is that this is new evidence. This is something I didn't know, you didn't know, that in 2016, Obama suggested, I don't like the outcome, that there's no evidence Russia was involved. Well, now we all say Russia was involved, but in 2016, they said Russia wasn't involved. What the hell happened? Let's get a special counsel.
Hold on, Senator. As you know, former President Obama has weighed in through a spokesperson. He says that's just patently false. I actually spoke to Susan Miller, who's a former senior CIA officer who helped oversee the 2017 intelligence assessment on Russian interference. She says it's completely false that Obama or anyone else asked them to change or sway their investigation. She says she says, and she's a Republican, says they all would have quit if that had happened. Senator, are you trying to rewrite history to distract from the Epstein matter, Senator?
No, I'm trying to let you know and the media know that we found something we didn't know before.
Senator, you're saying there's something new. This report goes back to 2020. It's 5 years old. There's actually nothing new in this report and nothing that changes any conclusion. But I want to talk about Gaza.
Turned over is new to me.
Senator,
it's new to me.
But Senator,
you're trying to sweep this stuff under the rug, and that's not right.
But Senator, you know that at the time you said you did believe the assessments and the multiple investigations.
Great. Now, here is a funny thing. Before I give her a bit of kudos for challenging this senator that is nothing more than a sycophant, guy that actually said Donald Trump could never win, would never win, or they will not allow to win. But anyhow, notice what they want you to believe. The investigation took place in 2017. The report came out and said that in fact, Russia was involved. But it didn't have a material effect on the voting machines. But as far as social media, etc., Russia did have a big influence on pushing Donald Trump's notions, if you will. But that happened in 2017 that they said it. The thing that they want to go back to is 2016. So how comes you're backing up to 2016 when in 2017 already the facts were proven? And then in 2020, when Donald Trump was already president, even his Department of Justice came out and said the same thing. And for those who say the Mueller report didn't show any collusion with Russia, you are dreaming. Read the report. The report explicitly points out all the different interactions between the Donald Trump campaign, etc., and Russia. I mean, there is no doubt that Russia had involvement in the campaign. But secondly, let's be clear here. Even Lindsey Graham points that out, and he didn't get that out of thin air. He got out of all the investigations that were being done. Russia was involved in actually both of these elections in the ability to move public sentiment, and they did it. But anyhow, let's give Kirsten Welker a kudos on this one, because the mainstream media partially did its job. What would have been better if she stayed on the lie as opposed to moving on the subject? Maybe she should have ended the discussion and saying, Graham, I agree with the Graham that told the truth several years ago. The Graham today is simply not doing so. Absolutely so. Absolutely so. Anyway, I want to point out something that Michael Rodin puts out here, and he said, Russia did interfere, but we know that. But the part that you said something else that I wanted to point out. Madre, where is it? Where is it that he pointed it out? Bear with me. Anyway, Bruce says the problem is that they don't recognize the law. True. But we have another issue here that I want to touch. Bear with me 1 second, because we've got to hit it. All right, I can't find exactly what I wanted to talk about here. But here's the other thing. Since I have Mr. Boxall speaking about Marxist, and since we also have CSAC speaking about, look at what the Indian reservations are doing and how good is socialism, or that, first of all, the reservations aren't socialism. How good is communism working? Oh, it's not either. The fact of the matter is they're just, reservations are pretty much caged, but that's for another day, okay? But let me point out, there's this young woman here that I found on TikTok. I love this woman because she was able to make these things in a manner that I want that I pointed out before, but I think she's doing it a lot better than I ever did. So I want you guys to listen to her because she gets it right. Check it out.
The mainstream and like far right conversation around Mamdani is so much more focused around being racist and accusing him of being anti-Semitic than it is about talking about his socialism. And I know a certain element of this is, obvious. We love being racist and we love accusing anyone who cares about Palestinians as being anti-Semitic. But there's something else happening here. You would think, given how terrified America is of the word socialism, they would be hammering that point right now, right? You would think that they would be talking about socialism again and again and again. And of course, there's the basic element that they know that his policies are popular and that Fox News, for example, is worried that their viewers might look at his 2% tax on people earning over $1 million and go, oh, actually, I think that might work. But there's something else happening here and I want to talk about it. And it has to do with the magic trick that the whole game of capitalism rests upon. I'm going to describe the magic trick. I'm going to give some examples and then we're going to return to it, okay? The magic trick is this. We take all of the most identifying characteristics of capitalism and we call them socialism. Okay, I'm going to say that again. We take all of the defining characteristics, all of the foundational factors that make up capitalism, and we call them socialism. Think about the most common claims you hear made about what socialism is. Socialism is a form of institutionalized control over your life that leaves you powerless. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about this? Socialism is when the government takes all of your money and funnels it into programs that you don't support and have no control over. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about this? Socialism is when you can't afford to own a home and you can't afford to send your kids to the school you want to send them to and you can't afford to go on vacation. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about this one? I bet you'll really recognize this one. Socialism is so unnatural and so artificial as an economic theory that it would require constant structural reinforcement, government intervention, bailouts in order for the system to continue to work. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about the most obvious one? Socialism makes you poor. Is that socialism? Or is that capitalism? I could go on and on and on, and maybe I will in future videos, but mark my words, every basic understanding that someone might have of socialism is actually a bastardized description of capitalism. Now, what are we taught about capitalism? We are taught that capitalism is about meritocracy. It's about free trade. It's about fair trade, competition, owning what's yours. Capitalism is none of that, as I have learned in a recent episode where Katie basically schooled me on all of this. You should listen to it if you're interested. All of the things that we claim capitalism is defined by, like free trade and wealth building and meritocracy, those were present before capitalism. They have existed in countless other economic theories, and they will be present when capitalism falls. They are not defining features of capitalism. What capitalism is defined by is capital. It's assets. And what capitalism does is divide people into two categories, owners and laborers, okay? So there are the owners of capital, so you might own your house outright. You might be buying into the stock market either through your investments or through your retirement funds. And then there are the laborers. There are the people who only make money through wage work, who will never buy into the assets, okay? They will never be able to siphon money off into retirement funds. They will never own their home outright. They will leverage themselves through debt. And they will work their whole lives to make the assets that they don't own worth more. Okay? Owners, laborers. Now, most people in America are not owners. Most people are exclusively laborers. Most people do not own their homes. Most people will never have a retirement account. They will labor all their lives to make other people rich, and then they will die. Oftentimes in this scenario, they will pass their debt on to their children. Now, as this has gone on, we have seen more and more ways in which capitalism makes a small group of people very wealthy and a larger and larger group of people existing their whole lives in precarity. So you see this with student loans. You see this with the rise of buy now, pay later. You have no control over your life. You are giving all of your money over to the government and to other privatized institutions. You cannot afford to take your child on a vacation. You are poor. You are already living in the circumstances, in other words, what they keep claiming will happen if this country becomes socialist. Now, what is socialism actually? It would be you having the control. You being in the position that you think is related to capitalism. You being in control. You owning your life. This is probably why every aspect of your life that is pleasurable has come from socialist policies and socialist activists. 40-day work week, weekends, holidays. That's socialism. So you have this trick. We're told your whole life that the thing that you fear the most is socialism. All of the characteristics that are true to capitalism are then applied to socialism. And that is the only reason why capitalism works. That's the only reason why we keep voting for it, because of the rhetorical trick that is being deployed here. Because of the way in which we have basically swapped the definitions, we are unable to name the thing. And because everything that is bad and inherent to capitalism, your inability to pay off your house, your inability to go on vacation, your total lack of control over your life, because all of that cannot possibly be capitalist, when it is happening to you under capitalism, you still agree when someone just screams randomly, irrationally, socialism. Socialism is why you can't afford to pay your bills, even though we don't live in a socialist country, even though it is capitalist policies that are causing those issues to begin with. All of the most obvious and fundamental characteristics of capitalism have been reassigned under another political label, and as a result, the language that you need to identify what is taking place right now has been stolen from you. This is why Mamdani is dangerous. This is why they are focusing on calling him a terrorist and calling him anti-Semitic, because they do not want you to spend much time talking about what socialism is. Not just because you are going to learn that you like these policies, but because you are going to learn what capitalism is. They do not want you to think about it. They do not want you to reassign the labels. Has anyone else?
And that is, let me tell you, I love this woman because, like I said, with her tonality and the way she have made that prose, she made the concept so digestible, much better than I ever had. And notice something else. She didn't use any numbers. She didn't use any statistics. She just was able to do it as far as what you know, what your life is, how you felt, how you know things are with you. The way I'm later on, I'm going to find out that where her source is, because she has a person, apparently an economist who lined up the similarities, etc. but I love the way she spoke about it because it is on point. Let's see. Michael Ruddin wants something on the screen. Let's see what that is. Okay, let's go. Let's go. I love that, brother Ruddin. I love that. Let's go ahead and get that up. Right there, it says top issues contributing to Mandani's support were lowering costs, taxing the wealthy, and support for Palestinian rights. And those are 89% for lowering costs, 86% for his planned tax cut, Palestinian support 62%, personality and energy 60%. Even that is in the 60s. But let me tell you guys something. I'm going to Netroots next week, and by the way, I'm going to put out a list for those people who want to be labeled producers of the interviews that I do at Netroots. I'm going to put it out on Buy Me a Coffee, my Buy Me a Coffee link, to help support my trip to New Orleans. But I met Elizabeth Warren about 10 years ago. I think it was in I think it was Arizona, where she gave the speech about the policies that most Americans want. And the policies most Americans want are, the child care, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicare for all these policies that people like to consider socialist policies. But as the young lady explained, are the policies that are good for us, right? That's what people want. That is what people want. And all those troglodytes that you see trying to fool you is just what she said. They put all the negative things that capitalism represent onto democratic socialism. And notice I didn't just use the word socialism that she uses. And the reason I specifically call it democratic socialism is that we have allowed the system to redefine what socialism really means. In fact, if you look in a dictionary, you won't see any substantive difference between socialism and capitalism. I mean, socialism and communism. They all say where the government control all the resources of production, all that BS. It's not true. Sources of production controlled by we the people. And that's what they don't want. It is like, why is it that in Arizona, or let's use in Texas, on all the public lands where there's oil, that after the company drills for oil, the profit goes to the shareholders, the owner of capital, and the executives bonuses, and not to the people who own the land, all of us as owners of public lands. Doesn't happen that way. Doesn't happen that way. So we have to keep, just like they repeat the lies, we have to repeat the truth. And Mr. Boxall, I hope that you actually opened your mind to listen to this young lady, because she was 100% correct. I am not going to ask CSAC and Eric Hayes to in the chat to attempt to do it, because it is evident that they have no desire to critically think. And I'm not going to try to get a pig to drink water, or I am not going to try to do that. I'm going to work with people who actually are willing to change, willing to think. But that's for another day. All right, MTP, another one from MTP. This woman, she actually hit Michael Johnson. And let's see what she did with Johnson here, and then we'll take it on the other side. We all know by now that Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal. We all know that he has implicated, or that America implicitly is actually a part of his cabal, not the American people, but the defense industrial complex and many senators who owe probably their loyalties not to you, but their loyalties to AIPAC. In other words, an organization that should really be a foreign lobbying organization, as opposed to what they are today. We all know that. We all see the starving kids. We all see the decimated and destructed Gaza Strip the entire area under rubble. We all know that even as Gaza is saying 60,000 people dead, that once we pick up those rubbles, if they are ever picked up, that they're dead, cracked bodies, skulls, flesh, bones underneath that, which brings the death toll to way over 200,000. Those are kinds of things that we know, and all of these things are done by Netanyahu. Today, or once again, Meet the Press challenge one of Israel's sycophants on that in question, asking about when is America going to force Netanyahu to stop the genocide, to feed the people. And I want you to listen to how Speaker Mike Johnson answered the question, because it was a lie. And the great thing about it is that at last, in one particular episode of Meet the Press, 2 Republicans called out for what they do best, and that is lie. Check this out.
Let me ask you about a critical issue on the world stage. The world has been watching what has been unfolding in Gaza. We are going to show some of these pictures. They're very disturbing, Mr. Speaker. Of course, this humanitarian crisis, children starving to death. Israel has now paused military operations amid the international outcry over this hunger crisis. Are Israel's actions too little too late, Mr. Speaker?
The images are disturbing and heartbreaking. We all want a peace there in that region. President Trump is trying to forge that, and we support it 100%. I will tell you that I've spoken to my friend Ambassador Leiter, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., and to other Israeli officials. This is important to note. Israel, since this war began, has supplied over 94,000 truckloads full of food. It's enough food to feed 2 million people for 2 years, trying to get that into Gaza. But Hamas has stolen the food. A huge amount. In fact, in 2024, the numbers are that Hamas profited over $500 million in stolen food aid that was supposed to go to these poor people who needed it. That's half of their budget. So this is a broken system. The UN needs to work with Israel to make sure that the food is getting to the people that need it most. The IDF, I'm told as recently as this morning, will begin tomorrow in opening new channels of distribution to get it to those people who are desperately in need. That's Israel's intention. That's the U.S.'s intention, and the UN as well.
All right, Mr. Speaker, we are out of time. We should note the New York Times just yesterday did report that the IDF never found proof that Hamas had systematically stolen deliveries of aid provided by the UN and other groups. We do really appreciate your joining us, and I hear you defending the Israeli position on that.
So yes, she allowed him to hang himself. Oh, yes, you know that Hamas steals all the food that we send over to Gaza, and that's the reason why Israel wants control of sending the food. No, Israel wants control of sending the food because Netanyahu and the IDF are genocidal maniacs. That's why they want control of the food. It's a war crime to hold back food to the civilians, and that's what they're doing. But she called them out. All the research so far has said, all the investigation so far has said, it is not true that Hamas is holding back the food. Those trucks that are going over, it is not true that Hamas is stopping the people from getting their sustenance. Once again, this guy that cherishes the Lord, this guy that claims to be a Christian, this guy that wants to talk about morality, is one of the most immoral of them all, as he supports a thug in the presidency, as he himself, we should not be all that surprised, because as the children are starving in Israel, or not in Israel, but in Gaza, he is about to starve the children in America. He is about to inflict the death penalty on the sick in America. He is about to do all these things to Americans. So maybe, just maybe, Gaza and the West Bank and other places are dry runs. Because this guy with a pleasant face and a pleasant smile And what seems to be a soft voice is not only justifying the genocide in Israel, but, justifying the starvation that he's going to be effecting on the American kids, the death by lack of insurance that he's going to affect on the American people. So again, it is not too hard to understand why they support Netanyahu and the IDF. After all, they're just killing using different methods.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray.
We try to find those lies. We try to find those lies. We try to find those lies. Welcome aboard, Adam W. Welcome aboard. Adam W. says Johnson is a liar and a damn thief. True. They blow up food vans and launch missiles at the press, UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, and Adam others, just to name a few. Precisely what Trump would do to us here in the U.S. that he finds undesirable if he gets away with it, and we won't let him get away with it. Owners, masters, laborers equals slaves. Exactly, exactly. I've been preaching that for some time now. I've been preaching that for some time. And it's great to see that we have all these other people working with that. And by the way, TikTok, Eric, if you want to know why I love TikTok, because it's still freedom reigns. You still have people that are out there that are free thinkers that have unadulterated access to all our eyes and ears instead of being rammed through the mainstream media that is owned by the plutocracy. So I love it. And this young woman, let me put her face back up again because I love this woman. This woman's what she had to say about capitalism, and I am going to put the link. I am going to put the link in the chat because I think all of you should listen to her stuff. There we go, and that's the link to her name is, or she goes by Caraclear Burkey. Caraclear Burkey. That's what she goes by. But anyhow, folks, I have something that I have to take care of real quick. So I am going to play her one more time as I do that. Okay, so bear with me 1 second as I get to her one more time. Again, there we go.
Basically schooled me on all of this. You should listen to it if you're interested.
Let's do it.
On being racist and accusing him of being anti-Semitic than it is about talking about his socialism. And I know a certain element of this is, obvious. We love being racist and we love accusing anyone who cares about Palestinians as being anti-Semitic. But there's something else happening here. You would think, given how terrified America is of the word socialism, they would be hammering that point right now, right? You would think that they would be talking about socialism again and again and again. And of course, there's the basic element that they know that his policies are popular and that Fox News, for example, is worried that their viewers might look at his 2% tax on people earning over $1 million and go, oh, actually, I think that might work. But there's something else happening here, and I want to talk about it. And it has to do with the magic trick that the whole game of capitalism rests upon. I'm going to describe the magic trick. I'm going to give some examples, and then we're going to return to it, okay? The magic trick is this. We take all of the most identifying characteristics of capitalism, and we call them socialism. Okay, I'm going to say that again. We take all of the defining characteristics, all of the foundational factors that make up capitalism, and we call them socialism. Think about the most common claims you hear made about what socialism is. Socialism is a form of institutionalized control over your life that leaves you powerless. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about this? Socialism is when the government takes all of your money and funnels it into programs that you don't support and have no control over. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about this? Socialism is when you can't afford to own a home and you can't afford to send your kids to the school you want to send them to and you can't afford to go on vacation. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about this one? I bet you'll really recognize this one. Socialism is so unnatural and so artificial as an economic theory that it would require constant structural reinforcement, government intervention, bailouts in order for the system to continue to work. That's not socialism. That's capitalism. How about the most obvious one? Socialism makes you poor. Is that socialism? Or is that capitalism? I could go on and on and on, and maybe I will in future videos, but mark my words, every basic understanding that someone might have of socialism is actually a bastardized description of capitalism. Now, what are we taught about capitalism? We are taught that capitalism is about meritocracy. It's about free trade. It's about fair trade, competition, owning what's yours. Capitalism is none of that, as I have learned in a recent episode where Katie basically schooled me on all of this. You should listen to it if you're interested. All of the things that we claim capitalism is defined by, like free trade and wealth building and meritocracy, those were present before capitalism. They have existed in countless other economic theories, and they will be present when capitalism falls. They are not defining features of capitalism. What capitalism is defined by is capital. It's assets. And what capitalism does is divide people into two categories, owners and laborers, okay? So there are the owners of capital, so you might own your house outright. You might be buying into the stock market either through your investments or through your retirement funds. And then there are the laborers. There are the people who only make money through wage work, who will never buy into the assets. Okay? They will never be able to siphon money off into retirement funds. They will never own their home outright. They will leverage themselves through debt, and they will work their whole lives to make the don't own worth more. Okay? Owners, laborers. Now, most people in America are not owners. Most people are exclusively laborers. Most people do not own their homes. Most people will never have a retirement account. They will labor all their lives to make other people rich, and then they will die. Oftentimes in this scenario, they will pass their debt on to their children. Now, as this has gone on, we have seen more and more ways in which capitalism makes a small group of people very wealthy and a larger and larger group of people existing their whole lives in precarity. So you see this with student loans. You see this with the rise of buy now, pay later. You have no control over your life. You are giving all of your money over to the government and to other privatized institutions. You cannot afford to take your child on a vacation. You are poor. You are already living in the circumstances, in other words, what they keep claiming will happen if this country becomes socialist. Now, what is socialism actually? It would be you having the control. You being in the position that you think is related to capitalism. You being in control. You owning your life. This is probably why every aspect of your life that is pleasurable has come from socialist policies and socialist activists. 40-day work week, weekends, holidays. That's socialism. So you have this trick. We're told your whole life that the thing that you fear the most is socialism. All of the characteristics that are true to capitalism are then applied to socialism. And that is the only reason why capitalism works. That's the only reason why we keep voting for it, because of the rhetorical trick that is being deployed here. Because of the way in which we have basically swapped the definitions, we are unable to name the thing. And because everything that is bad and inherent to capitalism, your inability to pay off your house, your inability to go on vacation, your total lack of control over your life, because all of that cannot possibly be capitalist, when it is happening to you under capitalism, you still agree when someone just screams randomly, irrationally, socialism. Socialism is why you can't afford to pay your bills, even though we don't live in a socialist country, even though it is capitalist policies that are causing those issues to begin with. All of the most obvious and fundamental characteristics of capitalism have been reassigned under another political label, and as a result, the language that you need to identify what is taking place right now has been stolen from you. This is why Mamdani is dangerous. This is why they are focusing on calling him a terrorist and calling him anti-Semitic, because they do not want you to spend much time talking about what socialism is. Not just because you are going to learn that you like these policies, but because you are going to learn what capitalism is. They do not want you to think about it. They do not want you to reassign the labels. Has anyone else been noticing how the mainstream and like far right conversation?
All right, I'm back. I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I had to step out because there was something happening. Anyway, so let me just say one thing, right? Because this is actually very important. Our media has always been complicit in misinforming. Always been complicit in misinforming. And now that we have the freedom with the internet that they're trying to take back control of, if you listen to my programs in the morning, you'll hear me always talk about taking the internet back from the billionaires again, because that is what they constantly want to do. Take away our ability to educate ourselves and educate each other. They want to continue the indoctrination and all. They want to continue the division. They want to continue all the isms that keep us apart. Because together we can't lose. I repeat, together we can't lose. And that's why when you see all the folks that are throwing swords at me, talk about you're not my brother or I hate you or whatever. I don't return the favor. I don't return the favor because I know one important thing. We are right. They are wrong. We are right because the numbers, the mathematics, the arithmetic, the morality, all of that is on our side. And therefore, we stick with it. Adam W. says, no wonder suicide and suicidal ideation are going up. It's terrifying to think that having control of our own debts is appearing to be an easier achievement than being in control of our own lives, as thinking continuously gets worse under these authoritarian governments. I feel you. I feel you. Anyway, I got to get out of here. Folks, thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. I really do appreciate it. I do honor it. And I'd like to ask you, of course, every time I end the show, to please consider becoming supporters of our program. And how can you do that? By becoming paid subscribers of our newsletter. And how do you do that? You go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, and become a paid subscriber. That is how we fund all that we do. If you want to know what we do, just go to the About section of our Substack, or go to politicsdoneright.com/info. I think it is. Let me make sure that it is. I think it's politics. We have so many links. You know how that goes. I think it's politicsdoneright.com/info. I am pretty sure that's it. Yeah, politicsdoneright.com/info. You can see all the different things that we actually do. So please consider keeping us alive, allowing us to continue doing this very, very important work by becoming paid subscribers. And doing that again is going to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. All right. I've got to get out of here. I'm going to the gym. You know, I still have to go to the gym. Sitting down 16 hours behind a computer, you got to get some exercise somewhere. So I'm going to go get that now for about an hour and a half and then get back to work. Love you all. Thank you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.